Heyo everybody, Haku here with a fun One Piece discussion I wanted to do really quick, and this discussion is going to be my top 10 Straw Hats who never were. Characters that I think, if they were written a little bit differently, could have been Straw Hats, and the ones that I think, maybe should have been. But I was actually inspired to do this video, this entire discussion, by a tweet from someone called Black Hat Huey. So I will leave a link to their tweet there. I'm going to show it up on screen and stuff too. I will leave a link to that in the description and in the comments just to credit somebody, since I did get this idea from seeing somebody else bring it up somewhere. And a few rules for this when I go through my top 10. I'm not going to do characters that I really think have a current chance of maybe being Straw Hat. Like, there's going to be no Carrot, no Yamato, no Momo or Tama. I have different thoughts on how likely or not likely each of them are going to be to becoming Straw Hats, but because we haven't finished the arc that's involving all of them, I didn't really think they would fit in this list. And again, for a lot of these, it's like they couldn't be a Straw Hat as they were written in their respective arcs, but I'm going to be like, if Oda had just tweaked them just a little bit and they could have continued on from there, the 10 sort of missed opportunities that I think would have been really, really, really fun Straw Hats. And also just because of the nature of this Jesus, this discussion, I want to leave it open for all of you. Tell me what your top 10 would be, or even if you can't think of 10, just tell me Straw Hats that, or characters that you think could have or should have been Straw Hats, but it just wasn't meant to be. But without further ado, gonna leave this intro behind and get into my actual top 10. So to start this off with my 10th choice, it would be Wicca with the Dressrosa arc, and Wicca is kind of part of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, but I'm going to say Wicca is part of the main crew. I thought Wicca's interactions with Zoro were really, really, really adorable in early Dressrosa, and Wicca was probably my favorite Tontada that we got decent screen time for, but the thing is, for Wicca to have gotten pretty decent screen time as far as the Tontada go, she really didn't get very much development at all. So again, missed opportunity. I think could have been used to develop Wicca into like a more fully like realized character, and then had Wicca be the sort of Tontada representative on the Straw Hat crew, because of course it kind of feels like, if Carrot joins, we'll have a mink, we have a fishman now with Jinbei, we have a talking animal with the human fruit, we have a living skeleton, we have a cyborg, so it just feels like we have this wide variety of Straw Hats, and a Tontada would fit in, especially because Wicca was one of the Tontada scouts. She could have been the scout for the Straw Hats. Again, it's just one of those things where I was thinking about Tontada, and I was like, if any Tontada were to join the main crew, I would have rather had Wicca over Leo, just because I think all the interactions with Zoro were really fun and cute, and if Wicca was developed into a more full character, I think she would have been a really great addition. Ninth, I'm going to argue for Marguerite. I feel like this, if a bunch of you like put yours down in the comments, I feel like Marguerite would probably be a pretty common one. I just think that poor Marguerite, she met Luffy at the wrong place, wrong time. Or really just wrong time in the story. Because, I don't know, Marguerite coming in towards the end of the pre-time skip era and joining the crew would have been really cool. It would have been interesting seeing her not only interact with all the characters on the Straw Hat crew, but as we go from island to island, different interactions, given that she had basically never seen a man before in her life. There could have been a lot of funny stuff there. She had a pretty cool personality. Combat-wise, one of the only people that we knew that early on could use Haki and could imbue arrows with it. It's an archer, which is different from anybody else on the Straw Hat crew. So I just feel like Marguerite would have been, and she doesn't look that similar to either Nami or Robin. I feel like she would have been a perfect addition to the pre-time skip crew if she just hadn't come along at the wrong time in the story for her to have been somebody to join. So, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for Marguerite. I think that she fits what could be a good Straw Hat pretty perfectly. It's just that she just came along at the wrong part in the story. And I mean, if you wanted to give her some sort of sad backstory, I mean, Hancock kind of treated her like shit. People just simp for Hancock so much that they forget how terrible she is to a lot of people. Like, she kicks puppies and stuff. Then to me, number 8 would be Koala. I feel like if Koala didn't join the revolutionaries, I think that that is sort of the dividing line for me there, because when I first saw the Fisher Tiger flashback in Fishman Island, I thought it was incredible. I thought it was a really great flashback, and I loved the story of Koala and Fisher Tiger, and I was like, oh, I really hope we see this little girl again. It'd be so cool if we got to see them again in the future. And then we ended up seeing her again as part of the revolutionaries, so that's really cool on its own. But I think that if Koala wasn't reintroduced as part of the revolutionaries, but was reintroduced differently, maybe still ended up loving Fishman, learning Fishman karate and everything, and then ended up joining the crew, I think that Koala would have been a really great choice for Straw Hat. But yeah, instead we got Revolutionary Koala, which is still good, but it's just what if scenarios, I guess. Next up is Charlie, and Charlie's one that the more I thought about it, like when I first made my list, I made this list and I was like, okay, time to do the video, time to like actually record this. But then when I got back to Charlie, I'm like, maybe I should have put her higher up. Maybe she should be close to number 1 for me. I love Charlie's character design, and I feel like it's one of those things where when we look at Robin, a lot of people are like, well, it's kind of weird that we have a archaeologist, but that's not really true for One Piece. Like, in the real world, an archaeologist isn't necessarily a job you need on a pirate ship. But in the One Piece world, if you're looking for the One Piece, you need somebody who knows things about ancient civilizations or who wants to learn things about them. Somebody who can read poneglyphs especially, which is why Robin is so valuable to the Straw Hats, and why having an archaeologist is actually really important in the world of One Piece and makes a lot of sense in the world of One Piece. And I think in a similar but slightly different way, having just a fortune teller, I don't even know what you would call Charlie, but something like that as part of the crew would have been a really cool, really different addition in the same way that Robin was. Again, Charlie doesn't look much like Nami or Robin. The only thing kind of holding Charlie away from the other Straw Hats would be, I don't really know if she would have any kind of combat ability, but again, Oda could have just written things differently. Another thing, though, is if we are to fantasy book this, if we are to sort of rewrite history to say that, you know, it would have been cool if this person joined back during this arc, it would have been cool if, say, Charlie was normal sized instead of like gigantic for no reason, because it seems like in the post time skip, like in the pre time skip, we had like maybe Whitebeard, but post time skip we just regularly have characters who are gigantic for no reason, and I'm not a huge fan of it. So if she were to join, I would have kind of wanted like normal size Charlie, because again, you always look at her and you think, oh, she is normal size, and then you see her beside normal characters and you're like, oh wow, never mind. Like a good example of that is Kiku or Katakuri, where it's like Luffy's fighting Katakuri and it's like, oh, they're like, they have similar abilities and stuff, and Luffy's trying to overcome this almost rival-like character, but then they fight and like Luffy is like up to Katakuri's knee or maybe waist in height. Or then you see Kiku in Zoro, and it's like, oh, Kiku looks like normal height and everything, and then you see her beside Zoro and she's just huge. People always joke about how like Kiku is Izo's little sister, and then Izo comes back to Wano and Kiku is like 10 feet tall, about to kill it on the WNBA if she didn't lose her arm. So yeah, normal size Charlie maybe would have been for the best, but I actually think Charlie, I might be underrating how much I would have loved if she would have somehow been a Straw Hat. The 6th Straw Hat that never was for me would have been Onimaru. I think that Onimaru would have been a good addition as the pet. We have seen like Beppo get mistaken as the pet of the Heart Pirates, Chopper mistaken as the pet of the Straw Hats. So I think having the actual role of pet be filled by an animal would have been really cool, and Onimaru would have been perfect for that, because Onimaru had a really cool tragic backstory, was just a really cool, enjoyable character, and like all the Straw Hats who have their different jobs, Nami's a navigator, but she can also fight. Sanji's a cook, but he can also fight. Onimaru can keep up and also fight against random jobbers. Especially with like the transformation into Gyukimaru, or just being able to transform in general. I really think that having Onimaru come along after Wano, before Onigashima, and just join up as the pet would be really, really cool. And I kind of feel like Onimaru's story is kind of done with at this point, which is why I felt okay adding Onimaru to this list, even though I'm not adding other Wano characters. But yeah, just Straw Hat that never was. Having a pet transforming fox would have been so cool, especially with a cool backstory. Next up, my number 5 choice would have been Gerd. Now, this is, again, gonna have to rewrite history a little bit here. So, Gerd was first in the Big Mom flashbacks as one of the other children at her orphanage on Elbaf, and then we got to see Gerd again as part of Hyrudine's crew in the cover arc. And I think in the anime they showed him with showed her with Hyrudine's crew as well. So, I would have said, don't show Gerd with Hyrudine's crew. Instead, let us get to Elbaf. Instead of reintroducing Gerd within the cover stories, reintroduce Gerd within Elbaf and give her like this full-on story, have Big Mom be part of her tragic backstory, ruining her childhood and all that. And then have her join the main crew, be, of course, the giant representative on the crew, have that connection all the way back to Big Mom's flashback. It would have been amazing. But yeah, we got her on Hyrudine's crew. It's a little underwhelming compared to what it could have been in my head, but yeah, still glad that we got her, even though it could have been better to me if she would have just been reintroduced at Elbaf and joined the main crew, because adult Gerd is wow. Amazing. But yeah, I feel like there's something else I wanted to say about the character. Can't remember. It's either way, moving along. My 4th choice would have been Monet after Punk Hazard, or maybe Dressrosa. I think Monet would have been amazing as a Straw Hat. She has a great design, one of my absolute favorites. Looks more than just mint Nami. The Harpy stuff is really cool, and if she joined, I would have wanted her to keep the Harpy stuff, even though that was a product of Law's Devil Fruit, strangely enough. I would have wanted her to keep that. She could have been the crew's Logia. As far as jobs go, it's right there. She could have been a scientist. And as far as a sad backstory goes, we could have gotten a fully fleshed out, like we know that her and Sugar are sisters, we could have gotten a fully fleshed out Monet and Sugar backstory, show how Doflamingo, even though she was loyal to him for whatever reason, ruined Monet's life. Monet could have been an amazing addition to the Straw Hats. It never came to be, and yes, I absolutely believe that Monet is dead. She got stabbed in the heart, and then exploded. So I definitely think that Monet's dead. Some people think she somehow survived. There was the rabbits in the wave, which was really, really weird. I think that might be the spirit of her devil fruit going to the Sunny or something, and maybe the Straw Hats do have it on a piece of fruit there, and they just kind of off-screened that, and they're going to bring it back up later or something. But yeah, I totally think she's dead, simply because if Monet was still alive, I think we would have seen her during Dressrosa. Dressrosa was so long and so involved with all of the Doflamingo stuff that I can't imagine going through all of Dressrosa and not showing Monet if she survived. The only other thing is, the only small, teeny, like 1% chance I think of her surviving would be if Oda has her survive in order to be the one to break the Doflamingo pirates out of Impel Down. Again, that's like a 1% chance, maybe even less than that, but that is the only reason I would have think that Oda would have kept her alive without having her show up in Dressrosa, if her role in the story is meant to be the one that breaks Doflamingo out of Impel Down. But again, That's just so unlikely to me. Pretty certain she's dead. But yeah, if she would have joined the Straw Hats, it would have been amazing because Monet is best girl and has been for like years for me. The next Straw Hat that never was is a non-canon character, but I'm going to say Lily and Stomach if she was canon. Now, I think her personality would have meshed really well with the Straw Hats. I think her design looks nothing like the other Straw Hats. It would have been really nice having a character with at least a little bit darker skin on the Straw Hat crew. Again, she has a really different look, and the thing I forgot to mention when talking about Gerd earlier, I remembered it was that Gerd's a giant, and giants are freaking huge in One Piece, and size is so weird in One Piece that sometimes you forget about it, but it's like, it would kind of be difficult for Gerd to ride around on the Sunny, because like, all the other Straw Hats would be like up to her ankle, but Lillian's stomach was a giant with the mini no Mi, which gave her the ability to shrink herself and other objects, so she could have just walked around at normal height and then grown into a giant whenever she wanted to. It would have given her a really unique and cool fighting style. There's just so many things that would have worked perfectly as a Straw Hat, if only she wasn't a filler character. Also, when it comes to having a dream or a sad backstory, her father was captured by the Marines and locked up in Impel Down, so we could have just had her dream be to bust her father out of Impel Down. That is her endgame dream. Like, it would have worked so well. Everything about Lily would have been perfection to join the Straw Hats. If only she wasn't a filler character. Number 2 is Conus, and I'm not gonna lie, little kid me totally, like, watching through One Piece for the first time, really thought Conus was going to be a Straw Hat. Luffy'd been mentioning from the beginning that he wanted a musician. We saw her playing instruments. We saw all the Skypian technology that she could have maybe used. We got this sad, tragic stuff going on around her and how Enel was like ruling as this god over her island. And at that point in the story, every major arc had seen us build up this ally character who eventually goes from being an ally character to joining the crew, except for Alabasta, where we had Robin joining instead of Vivi, who had other things to do. Vivi had other things to do. So when we build up Conus as the ally character throughout all of Skypiea is kind of a long arc compared to the previous ones up to that point. I was like, oh yeah, Conus is totally going to end up joining the crew. So it was kind of surprising to like little kid or teenage me when she didn't join the crew. I really liked her design. I think she's a bit different from Nami and Robin. She had a different personality than them. Again, I just thought she would have been a good choice. She would have been different in that she's a Skypian, and that would give her a totally different view on things when we get back to the journey. So, yeah, that was almost kind of a weird one. It was like the first time that I was like, oh yeah, we're going through the same formula as we always do, and then she didn't join, and I was like, wait, hold on, what? Like the first ever Rebecca situation, even though Rebecca didn't really have the inherited will part of the whole Straw Hat thing, but Rebecca seemed like so Straw Hat baity that it was pretty surprising when she didn't join. I guess it wasn't that, like, for Rebecca, I almost put her on this list. It seemed like, oh, she's destined to be a Straw Hat. She's filling all the boxes that we normally fill. And that happened up until towards the end, and then when we got towards the end of Dressrosa, I was like, yeah, Rebecca's just not there. She might still join. And it almost became like, if you watch a bunch of people's reactions back then, it almost became a fear. People were like, is this the chapter Rebecca's joining? Is this the one where she's joining? But to me, that was little kid me with Conus. I really thought she was going to end up joining. And people are going to hate this number 1 choice, but it's Bellamy. And Bellamy after Dressrosa specifically. I think there are still some pretty good theories about Bellamy coming back to join anyway, now that he's learned, like, flag making, sail making, whatever, and he can use the materials from whatever village he was from to make, like, unbreakable sails or an unbreakable flag for the Sunny. And that would be pretty cool, actually. That would develop his character further. There are a lot of good theories on that, but that misses out on what I think would have been a great moment if he would have joined in Dressrosa. I feel like his character was there to me. I feel like he could have joined the Straw Hats and I wouldn't have been upset about it. A little bit more development would be nice, but I think it could have made sense. I mean, Robin didn't make sense immediately, and she developed more after she joined. We could just get more Bellamy development as he goes along. But again, it's still not impossible for him to show back up, even though I kind of doubt it. But the thing with me, if he would have joined after Dressrosa, we could have had this amazing moment where Luffy shows up to Zoe with Bellamy, and all the rest of the crew is like, ah, whatever, we don't know this guy. But Nami, who was there in the bar and everything, at least from my memory, would be like, Luffy, I left you alone for like 2 days. What the fuck did you do? I would have just loved to have seen what happens there, where Nami just realizes, this guy's part of the crew. I left Luffy alone for 2 days. What happened? It would have been so good. I would have loved that interaction. So yeah, Bellamy is my number one Straw Hat that could have been. I just think it would have been, and just seeing the fandom's reactions as well, I think it would have been so fun to see him join at the end of Dressrosa. But yeah, I guess that's it for the 10 of these. Again, there are other choices that I was like, oh, they would have made a good Straw Hat, but, you know, not as good as some of these other ones, or I wouldn't want them as much. So tell me what your favorite Straw Hats that never were, and why you thought that. I mean, for me, I think now looking back on it, like, yeah, Bellamy's my number one, but I think the two best arguments or choices I brought up here are probably Charlie, because now thinking back on it, Charlie as a Straw Hat for like all of this post-time skip stuff would have been really fun. And really, man, if only Lily was canon, Lily would have been like a perfect Straw Hat if she was canon. It's like whoever wrote that filler was like trying to build the perfect Straw Hat that could never be a Straw Hat because it's not canon. Yeah, weird. But yeah, either way, I guess let me know what you think down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you again to Black Hat Huey for the idea that I'm basically stealing here. And I will again leave a link to that tweet in the description. So yeah, either way, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.